Did CNN stack the audience against Bernie Sanders at his town hall? Monday night, Bernie Sanders did a town hall on CNN, and for the most part, he was asked substantive questions and answered in kind. One minor exception came in a question about the sexual harassment that took place in his 2016 campaign. His response to the initial reports was too dismissive, and last night he wasn't able to fully articulate, this is according to the article, about how he would stop it from happening again, other than saying that his campaign is committing lots of resources. Okay, the bigger problem here is that we find ourselves in a confusing situation thanks to cable news not adhering to basic standards of journalism. I like this part of the article. Unfortunately, that's an evergreen sentence. I'll read the sentence again. The bigger problem here is that we find ourselves in a confusing situation thanks to cable news not adhering to basic standards of journalism. And unfortunately, that's an evergreen sentence, which it is. When I watched the town hall live last night, this question seemed completely normal and well within the bounds, okay? But you can't help wondering who's behind this. So they're saying it's okay. Again, Bernie's campaign issues with sexual harassment are a major storyline going into 2020, even though it happened in other campaigns too, and they just sort of covered it up. And given that he still hasn't completely addressed it, I feel like he has, but okay, he should be asked these questions. The problem is that when the question comes from an intern at a major DC lobbying shop, and that fact is not disclosed. And a closer look at Cassidy and Associates' financial partner, that's where this intern was from, paints a picture of a group that really would not enjoy a Sanders presidency. If it was just this one question, we could chalk it up to a mistake or an acknowledgement that CNN reasonably didn't believe that an intern needed to disclose her workplace. But this wasn't just one questioner. There were a bunch of audience members who are far more active in politics than CNN disclosed. Watching the town hall live made it seem there were just folks from all walks of life, when in reality, many of these supposedly innocuous questioners were political operatives in one way or another, as this thread revealed. CNN called Tara Abersole a former biology professor. Well, her LinkedIn lists her current job description as chair of the Baltimore County Democratic Party since 2016, and her husband was part of Hillary Clinton's leadership council. Abena McAllister was labeled as an active Democrat, which is far less descriptive than the Charles County Democratic Central Committee's description of her as their chair. Ying Jung Soi was simply called a George Washington student by CNN, despite her LinkedIn page saying she also works for Katz Watson Group, a fundraising and consulting outlet. Michelle Gregory was simply listed as a Maryland voter by CNN, but a cursory Google search reveals her to be much more active in politics than just voting. Then there's this. Similarly, the reparations question was offered by an Aspen Institute alum. She works for a nonprofit whose board of directors includes execs at Bose Allen Hamilton and the Carlyle Group. In fact, the worst question last night came from Wolf Blitzer, who went off the New York Times' initial reporting on Elizabeth Warren's stance on reparations, when a clarification made by the Washington Post the next day walked back the far more certain NYT characterization of her position, and certainly did not indicate she wants to support reparations like Wolf asserted. So remember that part that everyone was giving Bernie shit for, that he wasn't strong on reparations, and Wolf Blitzer kept reiterating what Elizabeth Warren was saying, and Bernie called him out and said, what is she saying? I would need to see the details. What is she saying? Well, guess what? It turns out Wolf had it wrong. And that's why Bernie was questioning that stuff and subtly accusing him of being a bit divisive, because Bernie probably knew that Wolf was getting it wrong, but couldn't prove it 110% because he was just on the spot. We should be talking the other way around. We should be talking about how, hey, this journalist held this politician accountable. Not, hey, this politician held this journalist accountable. But Wolf Blitzer's not a journalist. He is a cog for the establishment. That's the difference. We do have journalists in the United States of America. You usually don't see them on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. And when you do see some of those diamonds in the rough in the corporate media outlets, as Mort Saul would say, it's on page 68. It's in there, but you gotta dig. So Wolf got that wrong. The whole thing they were giving Bernie flack for, Wolf got it wrong anyway. Wolf just got it wrong. All right, let's see if there's anything more to this. So back to my main point, says the article. Really, the only problem in all this is that because CNN did not disclose many of these questionnaires tied to politics, one cannot help wonder why. There is absolutely positively no question that elite members of the Democratic and Republican parties, as well as major media, I would say corporate media, despise Bernie Sanders because he openly advocates destroying the system they sit atop. And I bet a bunch of people in the CNN break room were laughing, going, "Hey, Bernie, we didn't stack the entire audience, just 1%. Ha ha ha. High five, oil executive." So there you go. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and